I'm going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the Jordan Wicks start, and a lot more. So make sure that you like and subscribe and be part of our channel, guys. We really appreciate all of you hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. What do you say? I'm Mick Gillispie. Let's talk some Cubs baseball, and we'll start last night in Pittsburgh. What a fantastic debut for Jordan Wicks. He was just awesome. When I look at the start, I'm not really surprised. And if you guys watched the video yesterday, I wasn't sure what they were going to give him the ball. I thought it'd be today, but it was actually last night, and that kind of came after the video. But the bottom line was this, is he's got an amazing changeup. I talked about that a lot on yesterday's video, and also I said his curveball was good, and if he stays ahead of hitters, he's really tough. Now, I didn't know he was going to get 15 straight at one point in the game. I didn't know he was going to set all these, these records. And let me just go over a couple of those right now, and then I'm going to tell you what the good, the bad, the ugly was in yesterday's game. But according to Elias Sports Bureau, he became the first Cubs pitcher to strike out at least 5 straight hitters in his major league debut since the expansion era in 1961. Okay, that's one. Elias also said that he was the first Cubs pitcher to retire at least 15 straight in his MLB debut in the expansion era. So another really good feat. And then with 9 strikeouts, Wicks became the 4th starter in Cubs history. That goes back to 1901 to strike out at least 9 hitters in his MLB debut. So congratulations to him and his family and all of the people that support him. He's a great guy, and I love the glasses, and it was an awesome start for him. All right, let me get into the good and the bad and the ugly. But again, if you're hanging out with us, make sure that you love the channel and subscribe. We're going to be giving away some Jody Davis autographed baseball cards. I've got some bobbleheads that we're going to give away as well. You got to be a subscriber, and you have to comment, and you have to like. You have to do those 3 things. We gave away a Ryan Sandberg bobblehead, and we got, I keep saying bobblehead, baseball, and we've got a bobblehead, and we got some other stuff that we're going to give away as well. So just keep that in mind. All right. The good, obviously, the good was Tommy Hotovy coming to the mound after, the third batter that got the home run and the hit. He's about, he's going to walk somebody, comes out, talks to him. And after that point, he just started striking everyone out. That was the Jordan Wicks that we knew. He started relying on his go-to pitch, which is the changeup, and setting up the hitters for that. And that turned it into the kind of start that the Cubs needed. Drew Smyly hasn't been good enough to really anchor a spot in the rotation. Jordan Wicks proved that he can do that. And also that there's some talent in the Cubs minor league system, and that we probably need to be paying more attention to that. We're going to talk about minor leaguers and who could be the next guy coming up. That was the good. The bad is something that I've talked about consistently on this channel, and that's that the Cubs in their development cut these guys off 4 or 5 innings. And he's made, 22 starts in the minor leagues, and all of them are 5 innings or less except one. Now you're in the big leagues, you're rolling, but you can't put him out there for a 6th inning, because why would you do that for the first time in the big leagues? 80 pitches in 5 innings. That's not a quality start in my book. I think if you would have gotten 6 innings out of him last night, then you would have been able to cut off having Hayden Wesneski out there giving up all those runs, right? That inning almost blew that big lead that the Cubs had. Now, they did hang on the win, but you also had to use your closer, Adbert Alzolay, in a game that you really shouldn't have. So he came in to get the final out. I think that when you're developing, and look, I'm not taking anything away from scouting and development on Jordan Wicks. This was a win for all of those guys. But the philosophy that you're going to pitch all your minor league stars 5 innings or less, this is what happens. So now you're going to develop the guy to learn how to pitch 6 or 7 innings. Today's starter, Javier Assad, he did pitch over 5 innings, and he came to the big leagues, and he'll give you 7 solid innings. So to me, the analytics are important, and every single individual is different, right? So you can't apply the same analytics to every single pitcher. And so that's my frustration right now. So to me, that's the bad. And then the ugly was the way that the Cubs almost blew that lead. Wisniewski coming in, and they had the huge lead, and all of a sudden it got close, and then you had to bring in your closer at the end of the game. Look, you got to win these games. You got to. And so you needed Alzolay to get that final out. You just can't take the risk of not winning one of these games. And we talked to our friend David Kaplan. He said, hey, you got to win 75% of those games. And the Cubs win today, and they're right there. So they have an opportunity to do that if they win today's game against the Pirates. And this is a swing game as far as this stretch of 12 against teams under 500. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but let me pull this up. Next Cubs prospect to star, right? And I want to pull up a great comment from one of you guys. And I got to tell you, I love the comments. I love getting on there and reading your comments. I like when you agree with us or you disagree. Just do it with respect and do it in a way where, it's not demeaning to me or anyone else. Just say, hey, look, man, here's what I think. And that's why I really like this comment right here. I'm going to pull that off. Okay. This is from David Snyder on YouTube, okay? Actually, PCS, he's talking about me saying that Pete Crow Armstrong is going to be the next guy or should be the next guy to join the Cubs, okay? He says, actually, PCA is struggling some at Iowa, only hitting 264. I know he's the most fab choice, but it looks as if he's not really ready, folks. Some of the smaller name guys there are doing better than PCA. Jonathan Perlaza, love the guy. 289 average, 19 home runs. Matt Mervis, you guys have seen him. 287, 18 home runs. Now, he did get a chance this year, and he didn't capitalize on it. Alexander Canario, 293, 9 home runs, and that's in very limited action. Remember, he was injured for most of the year. He's the guy that the Cubs got for Chris Bryant from the Giants in that deadline deal, one of the guys anyway. And then Wyndham, who's a catcher, hitting 293. That is, to me, really amazing because he's always been a guy you look at and go, hey, he can hit. Well, he's obviously doing that. So, but he's saying all of those players are probably the better choice. Much too many superstar watchers. Disappointed. Okay. And you could also, and this is what I responded to him, I said, you could also add Jake Slaughter to this because Jake Slaughter is another guy who's playing third base and he's got over 20 home runs. And this is just another big year for Jake Slaughter. Now, what this comes down to, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, what it comes down to is first off fit. I think that Pete Crow Armstrong is a good fit for what the Cubs need at the big league level. Different years, it may be different guys, but he's exceptional at running the bases. He's better than anybody the Cubs have right now on the roster running the bases. It's like he's got X-ray vision, what I told Doug DeCenzo, the Cubs base running and outfield coordinator. It's like he can just see it before it happens. And so I think that would help the team. He plays gold glove defense. Him and Canario play the same position. They're both really good defensively. Pete Crow Armstrong, I'd give him the slight nod. And look, he's a gold glove winner in the minor leagues. He may win another one this year. So keep that in mind. He's a left-handed bat. Could use a left-handed bat. And the other thing that the Cubs have struggled with this year, guys, is hitting in the clutch. And that's what cost them at the beginning of the season. Remember, they had this, this team with a bad record, but they had, all this support as far as run differential. And when we had Jesse Rogers on from, ESPN, he said that the Cubs felt like, and he felt like that eventually that would turn around and go in their favor because they had struggled so much in high leverage situations. I call it just being able to hit in the clutch. Pete Crow Armstrong hits in the clutch. Am I saying that he's, Barry Bonds or something? No, but look, he had a couple of walk-off hits for the Smokies. He had a walk-off home run for Iowa. Not every player can do that. And I feel like with Canario, as good as he is, when I saw him playing for an entire season, a lot of strikeouts in those big high-leverage spots. Pete Crow Armstrong might strike out, but he gives you a great at-bat. He's got the best hand-to-ball wrists I've ever seen. And the things he's going to struggle with are going to be walking, and he probably needs to walk a little bit more, hitting the ball the other way. But at the same time, you're in a pennant race right now, and he is a spark of energy. The other thing that goes into this is that Pete Crow Armstrong, although he was drafted by the Mets, you gave up Javi Baez to get him. He's a former first-round pick. And there's a lot of people in the organization that some have some Mets ties. Other people just really like the fact that he brings so much energy to the table. When you pay someone a lot of money, even though it started with the Mets and now he's with the Cubs, that factors in too. And so for other guys that I think are big league ready guys, Jake Slaughter, I mentioned him, Jonathan Perlaza, because of the fact that these aren't first round picks, these aren't second round picks, you haven't invested a lot of money in them. It's a little bit slower of a process for a team like the Cubs. And one of the Cubs' biggest issues has always been they're a big market team. And it's like, hey, you know what? We don't have to give the AA broadcaster a job if we don't want to. We'll go out and get somebody national because we're the Cubs. And maybe, it's just, kind of throwing it into that. But that's the entire thing. It's like, well, you know what? Jake Slaughter's a 25th round pick or whatever it was. And I know he's hit 20 home runs and he's did this and this and this. He runs the bases great, but we'll go out and make a trade. If you were talking about the Brewers, the Reds, if you were talking about the Marlins, all these teams that the Cubs are, fighting it out right now for wild card spots, you'd see Jonathan Perlaza. You'd see Jake Slaughter, and heck, you might see me. But that's just not the way it works with some of the big markets. I mean, there's just a different accountability, a different game plan. And so Pete Crow Armstrong fits that mold. The other guys are going to have to wait. That's just the way it is. But I think your point is exactly right. And if this was maybe even the White Sox, you're right. You'd see these guys in the major leagues, but it's not going to happen. I think Pete Crow Armstrong's going to be the next guy to go to the big leagues, but we'll find out. All right, look, let's change gears. Let's talk about this team again. And today's the last game of this 12-game stretch that the Cubs are playing against teams with records below 500. And it's a really important stretch for the Cubs. I'm going to pull up the schedule, but this is what I call a swing game in the season because you've got to win these type of games because if you don't, it's going to really cost you if you end up a game out. Like, this is a game you got to win. And when we kind of take a peek at the pitching matchup today, I think the Cubs have a big advantage there. And, walking out of this 8-4 is a lot different than walking out of this 7-5. That's why this game to me is just so important. So here's the schedule. It's about to get really tough, but it's going to get fun too. It's going to be tough, but it's also going to be fun when you look at what the Cubs have coming up here. So that's September. Let me go back to August. All right. 3 games after today against Milwaukee. 7 o'clock, 1:05, all those at Wrigley. Off on the 31st. And then next month, which is coming really fast, you got a doubleheader against the Reds on Friday. That's a 4-game series in Cincinnati. The Reds 1 game back of the Cubs right now in the division standings. Then you play the Giants. They're a team right there on the verge of being in the playoffs. They've been like the Cubs. They kind of tip in and tip out. That's at Wrigley. Then the Diamondbacks, who are in the mix as well, they fell off, and now they're back again, 4 games there. And then you hit the West Coast, and you head to Colorado and Arizona, and you're playing the Diamondbacks again. So this schedule is about to get tough, but at the same time, there's an advantage to playing this schedule. And the advantage is that you're going head-to-head against Milwaukee. You're going head-to-head against the Reds. You're going head-to-head against the Giants and the Diamondbacks. So it almost feels like a round-robin type of wild card schedule. And when you look at the wild card standings, the Cubs may be able to take advantage of it. I don't think when I look at these standings and the way that the team's playing that it's really going to make that much difference who the opponent is, because when the Cubs are winning, they're winning because they're playing their type of baseball. They're getting a good start. They're scoring some runs. And when they get the kind of start that they had with Jordan Wicks, hopefully Javier Assad able to do that today. They're one of the best teams in Major League Baseball. So there you go. That's right now who is in the mix. Phillies, they're rolling. They got to the World Series last year. They're a team with a ton of momentum. So I think that it's the final two spots in the wild card that you got the Cubs, the Diamondbacks, the Reds, and the Giants, and the Marlins all fighting it out for. The Marlins have lost 8 of 10. I don't think that their caliber is with these other teams. The Reds, Ellie De La Cruz, all those young players, they're starting to figure it out a little bit. The Diamondbacks have been streaky. Now all of a sudden they've won 8 out of 10 and they're back in the wild card. But remember, they led the division over there, the toughest division in baseball in a lot of people's minds for the beginning of the season. Like they were one of the real surprise teams, and they're starting to get it going again. Corbin Carroll, obviously their star young player, maybe the rookie of the year. The Giants, and when I look at that mix, and I'm not being biased here, I'm pretty comfortable with the Cubs. I just think that the way that the Cubs are playing, the leadership that Dansby Swanson's giving them, everyone's got to stay healthy, obviously. But Cody Bellinger, I love the way that Seiya Suzuki has just, after taking a couple of days off, sitting on the bench, has come back. And now all of a sudden he's the player that we hoped he would be. Another big game last night. So that's exciting. I like the way that the Cubs match up. And honestly, you look at the schedule and you go, oh yeah, we got to beat these teams in this stretch. You got to win these games against teams with below 500 records. It's going to be a lot of fun every night watching the Cubs take on the likes of the Brewers and the Reds and the Giants and the Diamondbacks. Now, let's look at today's starting pitching. Let's go there first. And it's Javier Assad, who another homegrown starter. Give these guys credit. 2-3, 3.13 ERA. He's been just a pitch to contact guy, which I love. I can't stand that we have gotten so far away from guys who pitch to contact and get outs. He can get the strikeouts, but he's going to change speeds. He's going to change eye level. He's going to get outs, and that's what I think you need. I think if you're playing, you're in the field, you like those guys. Weak contact outs. Nothing wrong with that. You don't have to strike everyone out. And then Bailey Falter with the Pirates, a 1-7 record and a 4.53 ERA. Pirates actually had a pretty good start to the season, but they've fallen off. This is a game that the Cubs really need to capitalize on. If you're in the big leagues, you can pitch. Don't get me wrong. But like I said, this is a swing game as far as the season goes, because you walk out of this stretch 8-4, I tip your cap. That's getting it done, and that's why the Cubs right now, if the season ended, would be in the playoffs. Still a long way to go, but and not only that, the Cubs would be in the playoffs, and they're that team that you would not want to play. If you're the Dodgers, if you're the Braves, you don't want to see the Cubs. You just don't, because there's just a lot of confidence right now with what this team can do. They just took 2 out of 3 from the Braves, and the Braves, to me, are the best team in baseball. So that's where we are right now. All right, Milwaukee, the Cubs have had a tough time tracking down Milwaukee, and even though they're on the verge, if they take today's game, of winning 8 out of 12 games, the Brewers have won 7 straight, and they play the team in baseball that highlights why you can't buy wins, and that's San Diego. They went out and they spent all this money. They have 2 or 3 of the best players in the game, Manny Machado, and, and Soto and Tatis Jr., and they're terrible. They're terrible. You look at their roster, and there's no way that with all of those good players that they should be so bad, but that's just not the way that this game works. There's a lot of chemistry involved in this. You want to be able to mix, homegrown guys with guys that are in the free agent world that can help you. You can't, it's just weird how it's really tough to win with a bunch of stars that you went out and, hired guns, and they have struggled. So the Brewers play them today. And let me pull the standings up now. Even though the Cubs have played good baseball, look, they've won 7 of 10. They're 4 games back. Cincinnati's 5 games back. So that's just what Milwaukee's been able to do. Their starting rotation's been solid. And this division, which was so bad for most of the year, all of a sudden it's become a pretty good division. Look, Brewers, that's not a shabby record. The Cubs, they're surging. The Reds, they're over 500. So the top of the division, all those teams could make the playoffs. And that would tell you that it's not as bad of a division as we talked about at the beginning of the year. So the Reds are at the Diamondbacks today. That's good news for the Cubs. Someone's going to win, but someone's also going to lose. So if you win, you'll pick up a game on one of those teams. And then the Braves are at the Giants. Who would want to tangle with the Braves, right? So that's a good matchup for the Cubs as well. San Francisco at home, but they're playing the Braves. And again, the Braves, the best team in baseball. All right, guys, that does it for today. Again, thank you so much for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. We've got a lot of content coming up. We got some really cool things ahead. Comment, like, subscribe. If you do those three things, you're in the running for I've got a handful of Jody Davis baseball cards. He sent them to me during the offseason. Some of them say go Dogs on them because he's a huge Georgia fan in college football. They've won back-to-back championships. Some of them don't. But what? It's a Jody Davis autographed baseball card. So we're going to give those away and be part of our channel to get them. All right, guys, thanks.